Welcome to the road to $1 million and let's get right into the Bitcoin chart for today, starting on the 2-hour time frame, because in this video I'm going to talk about some new patterns and potential price targets, as well as the points of invalidation and warning signals that you need to look out for over the next 24 hours or so. After that, we're going to dive into some higher time frame charts as well. So let's just dive right in. Starting off with the pattern, this is what you call a falling wedge pattern, which is more likely to break out to the upside about 2/3 of the time. So there is a 1/3 chance that we do end up breaking to the downside. That's why I started this video by saying I'm going to give you the warning signals to look out for as well. We'll get to that in just a second. But either way, if we do end up breaking out above this descending trend line here, which currently has some resistance at about 111.6K, then it would set up this price target all the way at 115.7K in the Bitcoin price. As always, when we are looking for a bullish breakout, there are three things that we are looking out for. First of all, we want candle closes outside of the pattern, in this case on the 2-hour time frame. Besides that, we want to start seeing increasing amounts of volume as we are breaking out. And lastly, but this last part is not always required, we could look for some kind of breakout, retest, resumption type structure where we are retesting this descending trend line, or basically this point of the breakout, which could be at about 111.5K or something, depending on when we actually start breaking to the upside, if at all. In the case that we do end up breaking to the upside, guys, make sure to keep an eye on this 113K level, because this is going to be a critical area of resistance to break. Basically, breaking above these previous highs would very likely just give us a move straight up to 114K, roughly speaking, because there's very little resistance in between here. And then after that 114K level, the next area is already the price target at, again, 115.7K. Now, at this point, you may be wondering, why is this area here marked in orange? And that is because this is actually a bullish divergence, which has already confirmed on the 2-hour time frame. So a bullish divergence is when you have lower lows in the Bitcoin price. Typically, this points towards us getting a break from all of this bearish price action we saw here recently, either in the form of some choppy sideways price action or potentially some bullish momentum. Notice how right here, this is another piece of confluence in combination with a bullish pattern like this. Now, with all of the potentially bullish signals out of the way here in the short term, let's talk about some warning signals on this same 2-hour time frame, because like I said, about 1/3 of the time we do not end up breaking out of this pattern, and in fact we just get a straight break down. So in that case, if you start seeing candle closes below 110.6K, guys, be on the lookout for a further continuation to the downside, because this potentially bullish pattern will have been invalidated at that point. So if you start seeing candle closes below, start looking for some liquidity to the downside here to be grabbed. And of course, I will show you guys the Bitcoin liquidity analysis later on in this video as well. So of course, like I said, overall right now we are still in a downtrend in the short term, but another warning signal to look out for here is some kind of fake out. So for example, if we start breaking out to the upside, but then invalidate this by trading back below the point of the breakout, so the point where we start breaking above this descending trend line, that is another warning signal, and typically that is a good time to already start getting out of the way of the market. Even if it turns out to be some kind of breakout, retest, resumption to the upside, guys, you can always re-enter again in the same trade at a later point. But often what you will see, guys, is if you're invalidating some kind of bullish pattern, usually it starts trending to the downside. We actually saw that recently on this 1-hour time frame as well, with this like triangle pattern that we looked at. We started breaking to the upside, then invalidated it by trading below the point of the breakout here. And in fact, we broke this ascending trend line as well. So after that, we saw a big move to the downside because, of course, all the bullish signals at that point have been invalidated, which is by definition a bearish signal in itself. So the same thing applies with this pattern on the 2-hour time frame, right? Lastly, one thing I forgot to mention is that if we start breaking down below these previous lows, it is possible that we start making some kind of new bullish divergence here, but this is the point where we start really getting into the weeds of this technical analysis. The main problem with these videos is that I make them 24 hours out of time because I make one every single day, and I cannot tell you guys in advance if this is the exact bottom or if we are first getting some kind of marginal lower low, but in combination with a new bullish divergence here in the short term, and then we start shooting to the upside. Okay, so do your own research is what I would say with regards to that. I don't have a crystal ball, but all I can do is show you my technical analysis and give you some tools as well to do your own analysis, and you can do with that information what you like. Now, we also have a potential bullish divergence on the 4-hour time frame here, so a little bit higher time frame. This isn't fully confirmed yet because typically what I like to look for is at least 2 green back-to-back candles to properly confirm a bullish divergence, and not that we just get one green candle here and then continue to roll over. Either way, same thing applies if we start making lower lows. This specific bullish divergence is invalidated, but there is still the possibility of a new bullish divergence being created some point lower down. But of course, I will update you guys every single day about all of that stuff. Now, lastly, for the technical analysis, before we dive into the Bitcoin ETF flow tables and the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, guys, I did want to come back to this 2-day time frame for you guys because again, we saw a red candle here, and the first thing that happens is everybody panics, and the first thing that happens when we see a red candle is everybody panics. Now, I want to clear some things up because there is no need to panic right now, in my personal opinion, and I am basing that opinion off of my analysis, right? Because so long as we are not breaking down below 107K in the Bitcoin price, so long as we are not getting candle closes below this level and making new lows here, I am simply bullish on Bitcoin on this 2-day, even 1-day time frame. You can clearly see that we are just holding this uptrend, this ascending trend line, and overall just haven't made new lows here. So even if we end up dipping slightly below this trend line, so long as we are not clearly breaking down below about 107K, then I am just simply bullish on Bitcoin, even if it takes a bit more chop and a bit more time before we start really getting another move to the upside. Overall, I don't have a big reason to be extremely bearish on Bitcoin right now. Next, moving on to the Bitcoin ETF flow tables. And as you can see right here, yesterday we got a net inflow of about $100 million. So basically the ETFs are flip-flopping between being bearish 2 days ago and being more bullish 1 day ago. So overall, this isn't any like major trend, and we're just going to keep tracking this every single day until we can actually recognize some patterns in their behavior here. Lastly, taking a look at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, first of all on this 3-day time frame, because right here we do have a massive amount of liquidity to the upside, sitting at 113.7K, and we have a lot of liquidity at 116.3K. Now, in the case that you don't know, guys, typically the Bitcoin price gets attracted to where there is the most liquidity on this chart. So right now in the short term, that is to the upside, which is another piece of confluence for this whole analysis that we did in the short term here, right? Now, if I zoom out to the 2-week time frame, here you can see that in this flash crash, we basically just took out all of the short-term and the long-term liquidity. But if we look at the far right side of the screen here, there is still some liquidity to the downside at around 109.5K. However, most of the liquidity is to the upside once again, with a lot of liquidity sitting at 126K in the Bitcoin price. In fact, if I zoom out all the way to this 1 year time frame, here you can see it much more clearly. There's very little liquidity to the downside, but a lot of liquidity to the upside. Now, if you watched yesterday's video, please skip ahead like 20 seconds or something, because I'm about to repeat myself. But either way, so long as we're holding above that 107K level that I showed you on the 2-day time frame, guys, I have no reason to be looking towards this liquidity to the downside, right? So I am first of all targeting this 126K level before anything else, so long as we're holding above 107K on a candle closing basis. If we start breaking down below here, then we start looking towards the liquidity to the downside. So you will start to see me flip much more bearish on Bitcoin in that case. And in fact, the next level of liquidity to the downside is 198K, with the next level of liquidity below that already sitting at 93K in the Bitcoin price. So things would start to get pretty bearish rather fast in the case that we start breaking below 107K. However, for now, that isn't the case yet. So therefore, I am still just bullish on Bitcoin and expecting higher price action from here. Now, this has been today's market update, guys. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel so you do not miss any of these important update videos. But regardless, if you do end up subscribing or not, thank you for watching once again, and I will see you tomorrow in the next one.